Commander Eliza Morgan stood at the observation deck of the EDF Horizon, her eyes fixed on the massive alien ship that hung against the backdrop of Jupiter. The gas giant's swirling storms seemed calm compared to the storm brewing in her chest. After decades of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. "Commander, they're hailing us again," said Lieutenant Paul Davis, his voice steady despite the tension that filled the bridge. Eliza nodded. "Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the now familiar face of Ambassador Zexatora. The alien's iridescent skin shimmered under the lights of their vessel, compound eyes reflecting the stars around them. When Eliza had first seen the Confederation representatives 3 days ago, she had been awestruck by their beauty. Now that beauty seemed cold and distant. "Have you considered our generous offer, Commander Morgan?" Zexatora's voice was melodic, almost hypnotic, but Eliza had learned to hear the condescension beneath it. "We have, Ambassador," she replied. "Our leadership team has reviewed your terms thoroughly." Behind her, the diplomatic team from Earth sat in tense silence. Dr. Julia Bennett, Earth's leading xenobiologist, tapped her stylus nervously against her datapad. Next to her, General Carl Hudson's face remained impassive, but his knuckles were white where he gripped the edge of the table. "And," prompted Zextora, head tilting slightly in what Eliza had come to recognize as impatience. Eliza took a deep breath. "We have some questions about the protectorate status you're offering. Specifically, the resource requirements, the aliens." Skin rippled in a way that the human team had not seen before. "It is standard procedure. All Tier 3 species provide tribute to the Confederation. 40% is actually quite reasonable. Some young races pay up to 60%. General Hudson leaned forward. "Ambassador, that would cripple our economy. Our people would suffer." "Temporary discomfort for long-term gain," Zextora said dismissively. "The Confederation has guided countless species through this transition period." Dr. Bennett spoke up next. "And these technology transfers you mentioned, our team analyzed the list. Most of these technologies we already possess or have alternatives for." Zextora's skin darkened slightly. "Your species is young and cannot possibly understand what is truly valuable. What seems primitive to you may have applications beyond your current comprehension." Eliza felt her patience wearing thin. "Perhaps you could clarify something else for us, Ambassador. You mentioned Earth's strategic position several times. Could you explain what that means for us in practical terms?" There was a pause before the alien responded. "The Confederation faces challenges from certain aggressive elements in the galaxy. Your solar system sits at an advantageous position that would serve well as a buffer zone." The room went silent. Buffer zone. The diplomatic phrase for cannon. Fodder. "I see," Eliza said, her voice cooler now. "So in addition to taking nearly half our resources, you expect us to serve as a first line of defense against your enemies?" "You would not be alone," Zexatora said quickly. "The Confederation would provide support, of course." "Like you've supported the Pelians?" General Hudson asked. The aliens' reaction was immediate. A flash of color across their skin that the human team had learned indicated surprise. "We are well informed, Ambassador," Eliza explained. "Our deep space probes detected the Pelian refugee ships 2 years ago. We've been in discreet communication with them since then. They told us how the Confederation supported them when the Void Collective attacked their homeworld." Dr. Bennett added, "They showed us the recordings. The Confederation fleet retreated and left 3 billion Pelians to die." Zexatora's voice hardened. "The Pelians failed to maintain their defensive obligations. Sacrifices must sometimes be made for the greater stability of the galaxy." Eliza stood up straight. "And that's what we would be to you? A sacrifice when convenient?" "You misunderstand the honor being offered to you," Zextora said. "Most species would be grateful for Confederation protection." "Most species might not have a choice," Eliza replied. "We do." She nodded to Lieutenant Davis, who pressed a button on his console. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing Earth's solar system and then zooming out to reveal a network of outposts extending beyond Pluto. We've been preparing ever since we detected your approach 6 months ago, Eliza explained. We may not have your level of technology, but we've united our planet in ways we never thought possible. Zextora studied the display. Impressive but futile. Your defenses would not withstand a determined Confederation effort. Maybe not, General Hudson admitted. But we would make it costly. Very costly. For the first time, the ambassador seemed unsure. This is not how first contact scenarios typically proceed, Eliza smiled. We're learning that humanity may not be typical. Zexatora's skin pulsed with rapid color changes. I must confer with the Confederation Council. Perhaps we can adjust certain terms of the agreement. That would be appreciated, Eliza said, though she already knew what Earth's answer would be. After the transmission ended, the room burst into conversation. Voices overlapped as the diplomatic team discussed what had just happened. They're scared, Dr. Bennett said, wonder in her voice. Not scared enough, General Hudson grumbled. They still think they can push us around. Eliza looked back at the alien ship through the observation window. They don't understand us, not really. They see our technology and think they know what we're capable of. The general nodded. Mankind has always been underestimated. 3 hours later, Zexatora returned with a new offer. The tribute requirement had been lowered to 35%. The technology transfer list had been expanded slightly. The military obligations remained largely the same. Eliza listened patiently along with her team. When the ambassador finished speaking, she stood. Ambassador Zexatora, on behalf of Earth and all its nations, I thank you for your offer of membership. In the Galactic Confederation, the alien's skin brightened in anticipated triumph. However, Eliza continued, we must respectfully decline. The brightness faded rapidly. Decline? Commander Morgan, perhaps you do not fully comprehend. We comprehend perfectly, Eliza said. And our answer is no. This is unprecedented, Zextora said, genuine confusion in their voice. No species has ever refused Confederation membership. Then we are honored to be the first, Eliza replied. Humanity will find its own path among the stars. You will regret this decision, the ambassador warned. The galaxy is more dangerous than you can imagine. Perhaps, Eliza acknowledged. But we'd rather face those dangers on our own terms than live on our knees. With that, she signaled Lieutenant Davis to end the transmission. As the alien's image disappeared, Eliza turned to face her team. Well, she said, I guess we have some planning to do. Dr. Bennett looked up from her data pad. What happens now? General Hudson answered. Now we prepare, because they'll be back. Eliza looked once more at the alien ship, still visible through the observation window. Already it was turning away from Jupiter, preparing to leave the solar system. Yes, she said quietly, they'll be back. And when they return, they'll find a humanity they never expected. The sky above the New Mexico desert shimmered with heat as Director Alan Hayes stepped out of his electric car. He shielded his eyes and looked up at the massive structure before him. 20 years ago, this had been nothing but empty land. Now, it housed the main research facility of the Human Independence Initiative. Alan adjusted his tie and walked toward the entrance. Security scanners hummed as they verified his identity, the doors sliding open with a soft hiss. Inside, the air was cool and filled with purpose. Director Hayes, a voice called. It was Olivia Reed, his chief of operations. The team is waiting for you in the demonstration chamber. Alan nodded and fell into step beside her. Any updates? From our outposts near Neptune. No Confederation ships detected in the past 3 months, Olivia reported. They're sticking to their 6-month check-in schedule so far. Good. That gives us time. They entered an elevator that descended deep, beneath the desert floor. When the doors opened again, they stepped into a vast underground chamber. Dozens of scientists and military personnel stood around a central platform, where a strange device hummed with energy. Director on deck, someone announced, and the room straightened to attention. At ease, Alan said. He approached the platform, where Doug Peters, a thin man with thick glasses and wild gray hair, was making final adjustments to the device. "Dr. Peters," Alan greeted him. "I understand congratulations are in order." Doug looked up and grinned. "We're ready for the full demonstration today. If it works like our models predict." He trailed off, his excitement apparent. "Then humanity gets its freedom," Alan finished. The device on the platform was deceptively simple-looking, a sphere about the size of a basketball with intricate patterns etched across its surface. The patterns seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. "Everyone to their stations," Olivia called out. The room's activity increased as people moved to their assigned positions. Some sat at computer terminals, others behind protective barriers. Alan and Olivia joined Doug behind the main control console. "The Peters Drive," Doug said proudly. "Named after yours truly, though I still think quantum displacement engine sounds more impressive." "It can be called whatever you want if it works," Alan replied. Doug nodded and began the activation sequence. The sphere started to glow with a soft blue light. The principle is simple, really. We're not trying to move through space-time like conventional engines. We're creating a quantum entanglement field that temporarily displaces the object from normal space. The blue glow intensified. "In theory," Doug continued, "this should allow instantaneous travel between 2 points, regardless of distance." "In theory," Alan repeated. Doug gave him a confident look. "In practice, too. Watch." He pressed a button, and the sphere vanished. No flash, no sound, it simply wasn't there anymore. A moment later, alarms began to sound. "It's at the receiving station," Olivia announced, reading from a monitor. "Luna Base confirms arrival." A cheer erupted throughout the chamber. Alan found himself smiling wider than he had in years. The Peters Drive had just transported matter from Earth to the Moon instantly. "Distance doesn't matter," Doug explained, practically bouncing with excitement. "We could send a ship to Alpha Centauri just as easily." "Or beyond," Alan added. He turned to address the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, today marks a turning point for humanity. 20 years ago, we chose independence over subjugation. Today, we've taken a giant leap toward ensuring that independence is permanent." Miles away from the underground facility, Captain Frank Barnes piloted his small scout ship through the Kuiper Belt. The ship, barely larger than a bus, was designed to be virtually undetectable by Confederation sensors. "Anything new, Maya?" he asked his communications officer. Lieutenant Maya Cole shook her head. "Same chatter as before. They're still struggling with the Void Collective on the Orion front." Frank leaned back in his chair and studied the star map projected in front of him. Little red dots indicated known Confederation outposts. Yellow dots showed the positions of their ships. A growing black area represented territory lost to the mysterious Void Collective. "They're losing," he observed. "Slowly but surely," Maya agreed. "According to the transmissions we intercepted last month, they've lost 3 more star systems." Frank zoomed in on one section of the map. "What about these systems here, the ones they call protectorates?" Maya's expression darkened. "The Pelions are gone. The Confederation abandoned their home system 2 weeks ago, left the entire population to fend for themselves. And the others? The Vexil are being relocated to provide more troops for the front lines. The Nathari mining colonies are being stripped of resources at twice the agreed rate." Frank shook his head in disgust. "And to think we almost joined them." "Commander Morgan made the right call," Maya said firmly. "She did," Frank agreed. The question is, what will the Confederation do when they realize what we've been building?" On Earth, night had fallen over the New Mexico desert. Alan Hayes stood in his office looking at the stars through the window. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Kathleen Wright, Earth's chief diplomat, entered the room. Her face was grave. "The Confederation ship has arrived early," she announced without preamble. "They're in orbit now." Alan frowned. "They weren't due for another month." "Something's changed," Kathleen said. "Their ambassador is requesting an immediate meeting." "Have they detected our preparations?" Kathleen shook her head. "I don't think so. This seems to be about something else. They mentioned revised terms for Earth's integration into the Confederation." Alan smiled grimly. Still trying the diplomatic approach first. For now, Kathleen agreed. What should I tell them? The same thing we've told them for 20 years. Thank them for their offer and politely decline. Kathleen nodded. And when politeness fails? Then we show them what humanity has been doing during our isolation decades. Alan turned back to the window, his gaze moving beyond the stars to the future that was quickly approaching. Make sure the Peters Drive prototypes are moved to the secure facility in the asteroid belt. If things go badly, we'll need them. As Kathleen left the room, Alan's secure comm unit chimed. It was a message from the Luna Research Station. Final test successful. Mass production can begin. Alan closed the message and allowed himself a moment of hope. For 20 years, humanity had prepared in secret. They had built hidden fleets, developed new technologies, and united as never before, all while politely enduring the Confederation's increasingly desperate attempts to bring Earth under their control. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn what humanity was truly capable of. And it would all begin with a simple word that the Confederation seemed unable to understand: no. Admiral Susan Miller stood on the bridge of the EDF Defiance, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of tactical displays. Through the main viewport, she could see Earth, a beautiful blue marble against the blackness of space. Above it loomed the Confederation fleet, 15 massive ships arranged in perfect formation. They certainly brought enough firepower this time, remarked her second-in-command, Captain Ben Howard. Susan nodded. They're done with diplomacy. The largest Confederation vessel had positioned itself directly above North America. It was twice the size of any ship they had sent before, its hull decorated with symbols that Susan recognized as military honors from a briefing on Confederation culture. "Admiral, we're being hailed," announced the communications officer. "On screen," Susan ordered, straightening her uniform jacket. The main display flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Regional Overseer Calvex. Unlike Ambassador Zexatora from 30 years ago, Calvex made no attempt to appear friendly. His iridescent skin was a hard, cold blue, and his compound eyes reflected no light. "Admiral Miller," he began without greeting. "I am Regional Overseer Calvex of the Galactic Confederation's expansion fleet. Your presence here is unexpected." Susan maintained a neutral expression. "This is Earth Space Overseer. Your presence is the unexpected one." Calvex's skin rippled with what Susan had learned to recognize as annoyance. The Confederation's patience with Earth has reached its limit. For 3 decades we have extended generous offers of protection and advancement. Each has been rejected. "We appreciate the offers," Susan replied evenly. "But as we have consistently stated, Earth prefers to develop independently." "That is no longer an option," Calvex stated. "The galaxy has become more dangerous. The Void Collective expands unchecked. Resources grow scarce. The Confederation requires Earth's full cooperation." Captain Howard muttered something under his breath, but Susan silenced him with a glance. "What exactly are you proposing, Overseer?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "The Confederation is implementing Protocol 7A. Earth will be placed under direct Confederation administration. Your governments will answer to an appointed Confederation Council. Your military will be absorbed into our defense forces." Calvex paused. "This is not a negotiation. You have 1 standard week to prepare your population and disarm your forces." Susan's expression remained calm, but her hands tightened into fists at her sides. "And if we refuse, then Earth will be made an example of." Calvex's voice was as cold as space itself. Other protectorate worlds have recently entertained similar delusions of independence. A demonstration appears necessary. The transmission ended abruptly. Susan turned to her bridge crew, all of whom looked to her for guidance. "Send word." "To Earth Defense Command," she ordered. "Code Omega Red. Then contact all fleet commanders. I want every ship on high alert." As her orders were carried out, Susan stepped closer to the viewport, studying the Confederation fleet. They had known this day would come eventually. They had prepared for it. But facing the reality of it, the prospect of war against a vastly more advanced enemy, sent a chill through even her battle-hardened heart. On Earth, President Richard Lawson sat at the head of the Emergency Council table. Around him were the leaders of Earth's nations and representatives from the colonies on Mars, Venus, and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. The room was tense, but not panicked. Admiral Miller has confirmed the ultimatum, President Lawson said. 1 week to surrender, or they attack. Their fleet is larger than our intelligence predicted, said Defense Minister Elena Cortez, pointing to the holographic display in the center of the table. Initial estimates suggest they could overwhelm our orbital defenses within hours. What about the deep space fleet? Asked the Chinese premier. Hidden and ready, Elena replied. But even with them, we're outnumbered 3-1. A heavy silence fell over the room. For 30 years they had built in secret, developed new technologies, and prepared for this confrontation. Now that it had arrived, the odds seemed overwhelming. The door opened, and an unlikely figure entered the room. Grace Campbell, once a fierce activist against government secrecy and military spending, now served as a senior senator and the voice of the civilian population in military matters. You're late, Senator, President Lawson noted. I was speaking with my constituents, Grace replied, taking her seat. The people deserve to know what we're facing. And what did you tell them? Asked the Russian president, his expression skeptical. Grace met his gaze firmly. The truth, that after 30 years of preparation, the moment of decision has arrived, that the Confederation has demanded our surrender. She looked around the table. And that we will refuse. Murmurs filled the room, but none of disagreement. Earth's path had been chosen long ago. The Peters Drive factories are operating at maximum capacity, reported the director of industry. Every ship in the fleet will be equipped within 3 days. And Protocol Omega? President Lawson asked, turning to the head of the Human Independence Initiative. Ready to implement on your command, came the response. All colony worlds are prepared. The Haven system is secured. President Lawson nodded and stood up. Then our course is clear. Send our response to the Confederation. Earth rejects their ultimatum. We will defend our independence with everything we have. The room erupted, in somber approval. Grace Campbell caught the president's eye and gave him a respectful nod. Later that night, as Earth's leaders finalized their plans, President Lawson and Senator Campbell stood on the balcony of the United Earth Government building, looking up at the stars, and the Confederation ships visible as bright points of light among them. Do you think we're doing the right thing, Richard? Grace asked quietly. So many lives at stake. We've had 30 years to reconsider, he replied. 30 years to change course. But every time the Confederation visited, every time we intercepted their communications and saw how they treated other worlds, it only confirmed our first decision. Grace nodded. I opposed the military buildup at first, called it paranoia. I remember, Richard said with a small smile. Your protests outside this very building. I was wrong, she admitted. But I still believe in humanity, in our right to choose our own path. As do I, the president agreed. Which is why Protocol Omega must proceed. It's the only way. Grace looked up at the enemy ships once more. They think they know what we're going to do. They expect us to fight and lose. They don't understand humans very well, Richard said. They never have. In orbit, Admiral Miller received the official response from Earth. She read it and gave the order that would change the course of galactic history forever. All ships prepare for combat operations. Initiate Protocol Omega countdown. Humanity is walking away. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, their faces set with determination. They had trained for this moment for years. The Confederation expected submission or a desperate last stand. They would get neither. As the Defiance moved into position, Susan allowed herself one last look at Earth, the beautiful blue planet that had been humanity's home for thousands of years. Let's show them what humans are really made of, she said. Lisa Chen adjusted the controls of her stealth carrier, the Shadow Whisper, as it glided silently through the darkness of space. 5 years ago, she had been teaching third-grade students in Portland. Now, she commanded one of humanity's most advanced vessels on a mission deep in Confederation territory. Approaching target, her navigator Eric Goldman reported. Shipyard defense grid still hasn't detected us. Lisa nodded, her eyes on the massive Confederation shipyard that loomed ahead. 20 warships in various stages of construction hung suspended in massive anti-gravity cradles. Security ships patrolled in predictable patterns, completely unaware of the human vessel hiding in plain sight thanks to the advanced cloaking technology derived from the Peters drive. Deploy the infiltration team, Lisa ordered. In the ship's launch bay, 6 soldiers in specialized stealth suits prepared for their mission. Their leader, Major Sam Wilson, did a final check of his equipment before giving a thumbs up to the launch officer. Remember, Lisa's voice came through their comms. Plant the charges exactly as planned. The quantum demolition devices must be synchronized perfectly. Copy that, Captain, Sam replied. We'll be in and out before they know we were here. The infiltration pod detached from the Shadow Whisper and drifted toward the shipyard, its own cloaking field making it invisible to Confederation sensors. The team's mission was simple, but crucial. Plant quantum demolition charges at key points throughout the shipyard. When detonated, the charges would create a cascading reaction that would destroy the entire facility. As the human team worked, Lisa kept the Shadow Whisper perfectly positioned for a quick extraction. Her mind drifted briefly to her classroom back on Earth, to the children she had taught, to the life she had left behind. The Confederation had expected to find Earth a conquered world, its people subjugated or exterminated. Instead, they had found it empty. 8 billion humans gone without a trace. Protocol Omega had been humanity's masterstroke. Rather than fight a war they couldn't win, they had simply left. The Peters drive had allowed them to evacuate the entire human population, every man, woman, and child from Earth and the colonies, to a new home far beyond the Confederation's reach. Team reporting in, Eric announced, pulling Lisa from her thoughts. Charges placed, they're heading back now. Good, Lisa replied. Prepare for extraction and immediate jump. 30 minutes later, the infiltration team was safely back aboard. The Shadow Whisper moved to a safe distance, still undetected by Confederation security. Detonation in 3, 2, 1. Sam counted down. There was no explosion, no flash of light, just a sudden distortion in space-time as the quantum charges activated simultaneously. The shipyard seemed to fold in on itself, the massive warships crumpling like paper toys before, vanishing completely into the quantum singularity. Within seconds, the entire facility and its 20 nearly completed warships were gone, leaving nothing but empty space. Mission accomplished, Lisa announced. Prepare for jump to rendezvous point. The Shadow Whisper's Peters drive engaged, and the ship vanished instantly, reappearing light years away at the designated meeting point. There, 3 other human stealth ships waited with news of their own successful missions. 4 major shipyards destroyed in a single day, Lisa remarked as she joined the other captains in a secure briefing. The Confederation will feel that. Elsewhere in the galaxy, Tyler West stood before representatives of the Nathari, a reptilian species that had suffered under Confederation rule for generations. Unlike the military leaders like Lisa, Tyler was a diplomat, tasked with building alliances among the galaxy's oppressed species. The Confederation told us humans were weak, that you surrendered rather than fight, said Sevrak, the Nathari elder. Yet here you are striking at the heart of their power. Tyler smiled. We didn't surrender. We simply chose a different battlefield. He activated a holographic display showing recent strikes against Confederation assets. Supply convoys disrupted. Communication relays destroyed, occupied worlds liberated. For 30 years, the Confederation tried to make Earth accept their rule, Tyler explained. They thought themselves our superiors, entitled to our resources, our loyalty, our submission. When we refused, they expected us to fight conventionally and lose. Instead, you disappeared, Sevrak observed. We walked away, Tyler corrected. And in doing so, we gained something the Confederation never expected. freedom to strike where and when we choose. The Nathari representatives exchanged looks. Their people had never considered that option, having been integrated into the Confederation before they developed space travel. The Confederation controls our homeworld, Severak said. We cannot simply leave as you did. Not yet, Tyler agreed. But together, we can change that. He expanded the holographic display to show a growing network of resistance across the galaxy. The Vexil Combine, the quantum collectives of Eridani, and a dozen other species that had joined what humans called the Freedom Coalition. Alone, none of us can defeat the Confederation, Tyler said. But united, coordinating our efforts, sharing our technologies and knowledge, we become a force they cannot ignore. Severak considered this. And what do humans gain from this alliance? You have your new home. You are safe. Tyler's expression grew serious. No one is safe while the Confederation exists. They've already begun searching for us. And even if they never find us, could we truly live in peace knowing billions of sentient beings remain under their control? After much discussion, the Nathari agreed to join the coalition. As Tyler left their hidden base, he received word of 3 more successful operations against Confederation targets. The resistance was growing stronger each day. On a distant world, known to humans as Haven, the leaders of the Freedom Coalition gathered to discuss their progress. The location of Haven remained humanity's most closely guarded secret, a planet in a region of space the Confederation avoided due to strange gravitational anomalies that the Peters Drive actually exploited for faster, safer travel. Admiral Frank Barnes, once the captain of a small scout ship and now the commander of humanity's deep space fleet, addressed the gathered representatives. The Confederation is growing desperate, he reported. They've begun making examples of worlds they suspect of aiding us. 3 days ago, they bombarded the Vexil colony on Theros. Millions dead. A somber silence fell over the room. We knew they would become more brutal as we grew stronger, said Elena Cortez, now the defense minister of Haven. It's all the more reason to continue our efforts. The Void Collective advances on their core worlds, added Maya Cole, who headed intelligence operations. The Confederation is fighting a war on 2 fronts now, against us and against the Collective. Their resources are stretched thin. Frank nodded grimly. Which makes them more dangerous, not less. Cornered enemies fight hardest. As the meeting continued, plans were made for more strikes against Confederation targets, more liberations of subjugated worlds, more expansion of the Freedom Coalition. Humanity had emerged as the galaxy's greatest insurgents, not through overwhelming force but through stealth, coordination, and an unbreakable will to remain free. The Confederation had expected humans to kneel or to die fighting. They never imagined that humanity would simply walk away and then return as their worst nightmare. The Great Hall of the Freedom Coalition headquarters on Haven fell silent as Commander Eliza Morgan entered. Though now in her 90s, she walked with the help of only a simple cane, her back still straight, her eyes still sharp. The representatives of 17 liberated species rose to their feet in respect. 10 years had passed since humanity had vanished from Earth, and in that time, the galaxy had changed dramatically. Please be seated, Eliza said, her voice softer than in her younger days but still carrying the same authority. As the original commander who had first rejected the Confederation's offer, she had become a symbol of resistance. She took her place at the round table and looked at the faces around her, humans alongside the reptilian Nathari, the crystalline Vexil, the gas-based entities of the Eridani Collective, and many others. Each species had suffered under Confederation rule. Each had joined the growing rebellion. The Void Collective has pushed deeper into Confederation space, reported Maya Cole, displaying a holographic map. Large sections of what had once been Confederation territory now pulsed with an ominous black glow. Their central worlds are now directly threatened. And our own operations? Eliza asked. The Freedom Coalition now controls nearly a third of what was once Confederation territory, Maya answered, highlighting areas in green. We've liberated 47 worlds in the past year alone. Murmurs of approval spread through the chamber. What had begun as a human insurgency had grown into a galactic revolution. "The time has come," Eliza said, "to consider our endgame." The Seo room grew quiet again. "Endgame?" asked Sevrak, the Nathari elder. "We have not yet achieved total victory, and we may never achieve it through military means alone," Eliza replied. "The Confederation still possesses vast resources and countless worlds under their control. All the more reason to continue fighting," said one of the Vexel representatives, his crystalline body glinting with what humans had learned to recognize as anger. "After what they did to our colony worlds, we demand justice." Eliza nodded in understanding. "Justice, yes, but revenge is a different matter." She stood and moved to the center of the room, her gaze sweeping across the gathered representatives. "We left Earth because we refused to be what the Confederation wanted us to be," she said. "We refused to be conquered, to be subjugated, to be used as pawns in their wars. But if we continue on this path, if our only goal becomes the total destruction of the Confederation, then we risk becoming conquerors ourselves." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Many of the coalition members had dreamed of nothing but the Confederation's downfall for generations. "What are you proposing?" Admiral Frank Barnes asked finally. "Peace," Eliza said simply. "On our terms." The room erupted in voices, some outraged, some curious, some thoughtful. Eliza waited patiently until order was restored. "Not surrender," she clarified. "Not forgiveness for their crimes, but an end to the cycle of violence that has consumed this galaxy for centuries." She gestured to a human woman waiting quietly by the door. "Dr. Maria Reeves has made a discovery that changes everything." Maria stepped forward, a scientist who had spent years studying the mysterious Void Collective that had been the Confederation's other enemy. "The Void Collective is not what we thought," Maria explained. "It's not a rival empire or a different species. It's the result of the Confederation's own actions, an unintended consequence of experimental technology they abandoned centuries ago." She activated her own holographic display, showing complex data patterns that pulsed and shifted like living things. "The Void is essentially a wave of dark energy that's been weaponized by the Confederation's failed experiments. It's not intelligent in the way we understand intelligence, but it is adaptive. And it's growing stronger with every world it consumes. If left unchecked," Eliza continued, "the Void will eventually consume not just the Confederation, but all life in the galaxy, including our own worlds." The representatives looked at each other with new concern. "Can it be stopped?" asked the Eridani representative, its gaseous form swirling anxiously. Maria nodded. "The Peters drive technology can be modified to create a containment field that would neutralize the Void's expansion, but it would require resources beyond what the Coalition currently possesses." "You want us to save the Confederation?" Sevrak asked incredulously. "I want us to save ourselves," Eliza corrected. "And if that means also saving the Confederation, then yes." After hours of heated debate, the Coalition reached a decision. They would offer the Confederation a choice: surrender and reform, or face extinction from both the Coalition and the Void. Using the advanced communication technology developed by Maria Reeves, they broadcast their message throughout Confederation space. A final ultimatum, not for conquest, but for transformation. 2 days later, the Confederation Supreme Council requested a meeting. On a neutral world at the edge of Coalition space, representatives from both sides gathered. The humans sent Admiral Frank Barnes, now a respected military leader, to deliver their terms. "The Confederation must dissolve," Frank stated firmly to the assembled dignitaries. "All member worlds must be given true autonomy. A new galactic community will form where all species have equal voice and rights." Regional Overseer Cal Vex, older now but still recognizable from the ultimatum he had delivered to Earth a decade ago, sneered. "And why would we agree to such terms?" Frank activated a holographic display showing the advancing Void Collective. "Because we can stop this. And we will. But only if the Confederation as it exists now comes to an end." "This is blackmail," Calvex sputtered. "This is survival," Frank countered. Not just yours, but everyone's. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. We walked away once. We can do it again. But this time, we won't be building a new home. We'll be watching yours burn from the stars. The Confederation representatives whispered among themselves. Finally, their prime speaker stepped forward. The terms are harsh, she admitted. But perhaps necessary. The Confederation has lost its way over the centuries. Perhaps it is time for a new beginning. 1 year later, Eliza Morgan stood on a hilltop overlooking the rebuilt city of Washington, D.C. Earth, once abandoned, was being reclaimed by humanity and their new allies. The new Galactic Charter had been signed, dissolving the Confederation and establishing a true coalition of equals. The Peters Drive technology, modified as Maria had suggested, had successfully contained the Void Collective. Planets once thought lost were being slowly recovered and restored. As the sun set over the city, casting golden light across the newly reconstructed monuments, Eliza felt a presence beside her. It's strange to be back, said Kathleen Wright, the diplomat who had politely declined the Confederation's offers for decades. It is, Eliza agreed, but it feels right. Below them, humans walked alongside Nathari, Vexiel, Eridani, and even former Confederation species. Children played in parks where once there had been only empty streets. They never understood us, Eliza said softly. The Confederation. They thought our walking away was surrender. They never realized it was our greatest strength, knowing when to step back, when to choose a different path. And now? Kathleen asked. Eliza smiled, watching the diverse beings below living in harmony. Now we've shown the galaxy that there's another way. Not conquest, not subjugation, but cooperation, equality, respect. She looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky, stars that now represented opportunity and peace, rather than threat and conflict. We never wanted to rule, she whispered. We just refused to kneel. And in that simple truth, the galaxy had found its salvation.